Welcome back to my 2017 Game of the Year celebration. With 4 winners already chosen, it's time to move on to our second day of festivities. Today's categories include Best Surprise, Best Mechanics, Best Visuals, and Best Story, each featuring 4 nominees and 1 winner, as we build towards the final top 10 Games of the Year list on day 5. Of course, these are all just my own personal opinions, but I'd love to hear what you would have picked in the comments below. Let's stride boldly forth into the awards for day 2. Best Surprise. Dream Daddy. When it first appeared, Dream Daddy seemed like a fun joke. Dads are hot right now. Here's a game where you're a hot dad dating other hot dads. However, it didn't take long after release before word started to spread that there was more to Dream Daddy than pure novelty. It's certainly a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's also a game that doesn't ever really address too many serious issues. But Dream Daddy isn't afraid to be touching or thoughtful or heartwarming. It may exist in a utopia of pleasantness and friendship, but in 2017 that utopia was a welcome escape. Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. When Mario & Rabbids was first announced, it sounded like a bizarre crossover. Yet as soon as it was shown to be an XCOM-style grid-based strategy game, my interest was piqued. That initial bizarreness may never have gone away, but Ubisoft completely delivered on their premise. Not only did they manage to craft a successful strategy game in a gorgeous cartoon world with a ton of heart and charm, they actually solved several of my core problems with the genre in ways which might make it my favourite grid-based strategy title to date. Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil, a series of ups and downs. My history with Resident Evil is a little spotty, but it's fair to say that by 6 the series was certainly in one of its biggest creative ruts to date. It was time to hit the reset button once again. Seeing initial footage implied Capcom was heading down a more PT-inspired horror route, which showed some promise but wasn't really to my taste. Yet in many ways 7 ends up paying homage to the original Resident Evil, feeling creative and fresh whilst also sparking off those nostalgia centres. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Naughty Dog did it again, releasing another game so soon after Uncharted 4, and without the series' iconic protagonist. Well, it turns out that an Uncharted game without Nathan Drake is exactly what the series needed to feel fresh again. In his place, we find 2 far more compelling personalities, Chloe Fraser and Nadine Ross, an uneasy alliance for the ages. Lost Legacy doesn't only justify its own existence, it convinced me that Uncharted can still work. It just needed some new faces on the cover.
Their loss is our gain, right?
I wanted to believe. From the moment I saw the E3 demo of Mario & Rabbids alongside the proud, happy face of its creative director David Soliani, I wanted Mario & Rabbids to be something special. However, I had no strong love for either the Rabbids or the Mario series going in, and the idea of a third-party crossover family-friendly grid-based strategy game seemed like far too many eggs in one basket. And yet, everything came together. Mario & Rabbids is a delight. It made me care about both franchises in ways I hadn't really until now. It made me chuckle and smile and scratch my head as I mused over the optimal approach to a given scenario. It struck that perfect balance of accessible mechanics with enough depth and complexity to provide a real challenge. It turned Luigi into the unblinking killing machine we all knew he was destined to become. I couldn't have imagined any part of Mario & Rabbids existing prior to its announcement, but it ended up being amongst my favourite memories of 2017. And I couldn't be happier about that. Best Mechanics. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is a playground, the true sandbox that the open world genre has always promised us. You're given a fairly simple set of tools to work with, but the possibility for experimentation is near endless. Almost anything you can think of trying has a pretty good chance of working, whether it's as simple as carrying a fire spear with you to keep warm in the snow, or as fancy as laying out metallic equipment on the ground to draw lightning strikes towards enemies. Even when there's an intended path, you never feel like you're being punished for trying something different. Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. The turn-based grid strategy genre is a traditionally niche, complex thing, so it was fascinating to see Ubisoft tackling it with an ostensibly more family-friendly approach. Striking the balance between approachability and sufficient depth was a big ask, but Mario & Rabbids nails it, feeling easy to pick up and play but also being able to provide a real level of tactical nuance where desired. In fact, many of the decisions such as hit percentages being limited to just 3 possible values feel like smart design choices rather than coming across as being dumbed down. Persona 5. Persona 5 for the most part feels like a refinement of previous entries in the series, but it's clear Atlus has drawn inspiration from other games such as 2016's Tokyo Mirage Sessions, as well as older Shin Megami Tensei titles. The baton pass brings a smoother flow to combat, allowing players to much more efficiently plan out attack sequences rather than having to awkwardly tab between upcoming character turns, whilst the hold-up negotiation systems are just vague enough in their design to emulate the feel of navigating conversational minefields without ever becoming too frustrating. The Sexy Brutale. Playing the same day on loop over and over could easily have become quickly repetitive, in a bad sense, but by shifting you around the mansion as the story progresses, the Sexy Brutale keeps that sense of discovery ticking over. Functionally, the way you open up new paths and shortcuts with each ability is very Metroidvania in design, yet it feels a little less explicitly so here than most games of that style. Suddenly seeing through to the turning gears of a puzzle and realising exactly where to stick your spanner to grind everything to a halt is immensely satisfying. I've long been a fan of games such as XCOM, but I've always had several issues with their mechanics. Mario and Rabbids handled a lot of these problems in ways that appeal much more to my sensibilities, replacing the overly complex, often unrealistic percentage system with a much more straightforward setup of 0, 50 or 100% chance based on guaranteed positional situations means you always know at a glance how likely something is to hit. Furthermore, the addition of special effects to the critical hit system makes choosing your team and loadout more interesting than simply which type of gun each character has to hand. Movement systems such as slide attacks and team jumps allow for a very high mobility playstyle, but the game also affords these options to your foes, meaning you can't be content to simply turtle up in defensive formations. Being able to use your movement, attack and ability in any order on a given turn is a hugely smart decision that further increases the options at your disposal and makes its absence in many other games of the genre feel like an oversight. Crucially, the game is designed such that a novice player can still finish everything, but if you want to get those perfect scores, you'll have to master every system in the book, and I had a ton of fun doing so. Best Visuals. Destiny 2. Bungie's space fantasy returned in full force for Destiny 2, complete with their trademark gorgeous skyboxes and hundreds of designer pieces of weaponry and gear to lust after. Freed from the constraints of being a cross-generational title, the sequel plays around a little more with its environment, resulting in the crashing methane oceans beneath the rigs on Titan, and the fiery, molten caverns lurking under the lush crimson forests on Nessus. Destiny 2 looks fantastic on consoles, but things get even more spectacular when you head over to the buttery smooth PC release. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. When you're working with more limited hardware, strong arts design becomes essential, and it's here that Breath of the Wild pulls out the old Ninty magic. The sweeping vistas of Hyrule are breathtaking at times, and there's a real sense of craft to the way the entire world is put together. No matter where you go, there are incredible sightlines to behold, and the satisfaction of cresting a peak and seeing this gorgeous possibility space spread out below you is perhaps the best realisation to date of the old motto, you see that mountain? You can go there. Persona 5. It can be easy to sweep Persona 5's looks up as pure style, but underneath all that flash is a ton of incredible design that helps bring Atlus's take on Tokyo to life. From the striking character designs to the intricate details of the subway system, the world of Persona 5 begs you to explore everything it has to offer. Things continue to impress on your trips into the metaverse, the dungeons have come a long way in design from Persona 4, and your crew's outfits and personas all contribute greatly to the heist vibe. Persona 5 may be all style, but it's certainly not lacking in substance either. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. It's really no surprise at this point that Uncharted is a looker, but that doesn't make Chloe and Nadine's adventure any less of a visual spectacle to behold. The environments are a little less varied than that of 4 due to Lost Legacy's more focused narrative, but there's still no shortage of stunning monuments and broken down ruins to gorp at and climb all over. Naughty Dog's facial tech is hard at work here too, really helping to bring the two protagonists to life emotionally in a story that leans heavily into the developing relationship between them. There's some real technical powerhouses on here, but Breath of the Wild shows that you don't need to be at the cutting edge to be breathtaking. The vast draw distance lets you look out across these huge landscapes, the horizon dotted with splashes and specks of bold colour, which draw your eyes instantly towards places of interest. The vibrant orange of the shrines and towers means that even the tiniest glimmer of one stands out across miles of space. urging you to travel through the murky swamps and dense forests to seek it out. As you wander through fields and mountains, apples glimmer red from the trees, bonfires burn off in the distance, the long green grass sways in the wind around you, and your sword sparks as a storm sets in, warning you of risk of lightning. I'll never forget the first time I turned whilst climbing a hillside to see a colossal emerald dragon gliding effortlessly through the stormy skies. Breath of the Wild is such a delight to explore because everywhere you go means a new thing to see, and that wouldn't work so well if it weren't so stunning to look at every turn. Best Story. A quick spoiler warning here, I'll be talking about the overall story arcs of Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata, Subsurface Circular and Yakuza 0. If you'd rather not have those spoiled, I totally understand, and thanks for watching this far. Otherwise, onwards we go.
Just like the woman I saw.
Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon manages to successfully weave in two major narratives over the course of its game and keep both of them interesting. On the one hand, you have the mystery of the metal world and what became of the ancient civilization that lived many years ago. On the other, there's the seemingly more pressing issue of the Shadow Carja and why they're so desperate to hunt down Aloy that they begin carving a path of destruction throughout the land. As you near the climax, of course, both aspects begin to intertwine, but Horizon manages to keep all the balls in play and deliver a satisfying conclusion across the board.
By the sun, do as she says!
Nier Automata. Yoko Taro's storytelling chops have always been touted as the major draw for his games, and Automata delivers in consummate form. Taro's trademark multiple route format returns, allowing him to withhold critical pieces of information initially only to reveal them at a later date. Importantly, a big part of Automata's success is that those reveals don't feel like a retread of the twists from the original Nier. Automata knows that the player is likely expecting to be misdirected, yet it still manages to catch you off guard with where it actually ends up, which makes it an even more impressive feat.
Dare talk to me about 2 feet!
Subsurface Circular. Robots as the workforce for a human society is fairly well trodden ground at this point, yet Subsurface Circular takes a very low-key approach. By restricting you to brief interactions with techs going about their day-to-day, your perspective on the state of the world is shaped not by the informed confidence of a narrator, but rather by speaking with those who live and work in it. It's the perfect setup for a perplexing finale in which you are asked to choose between the struggles of the status quo and a potentially better future which might not have room for the very techs currently doing their best to get by. Yakuza 0. As with all good crime stories, Yakuza 0 all comes down to real estate. But the struggle for the empty lot is a tale filled with a myriad players, each with their own intentions and motives, resulting in a twisting narrative of fragile alliances, betrayal, friendship, honour and love. Wrapping your head around everyone involved and what they desire can take some doing, especially when those motives can turn on a dime. But Yakuza 0 tells a story that keeps you invested and keeps you guessing where it'll go next from minutes 1 through to its explosive finale. Having missed out on the original Nier at the time, I made sure to catch up before heading into Automata. As a result, I was wary of anything that was being presented to me from the off, expecting there to be a similar turn around the halfway mark. Instead, Automata reveals itself to be somewhat more nuanced than its predecessor, telling a story about purpose and desire, asking why we choose to act the way we do, wondering where we might find meaning when the world seems so intent on ripping that meaning away from us time after time. Yoko Taro also manages to handle the narrative in such a way as to account for both returning players and those coming to Nier for the first time. Automata is incredible at subtly planting the seeds of expectation in the player's head. Perhaps no moment illustrates this better than their initial presentation of the third act as this climactic battle, only to almost immediately tear everything you know to pieces, set most of them ablaze, and ask you to pick up the remnants one by one. Saying that Nier Automata plays you might seem like a silly joke, yet on so many occasions it reveals that you've been playing perfectly into its hand in a way that feels magical. And that wraps up today's awards. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, a like would be greatly appreciated, and be sure to leave any comments, opinions or queries down below as well. We'll be back with another video tomorrow where I'll be revealing my picks for best soundtrack, best writing, best time filler and best moment or sequence. Until then, I've been Ken and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!